belief systems are the only thing that keep people from what they want. It's always. So being more aware of like, what are my beliefs? How can I change my beliefs? Studying it, it's a skill. You can literally change the way your mind works and start believing that you deserve more.
When I was growing up, everybody used to tell me all the time, they just said, you know, if you're wealthy, you're going to be evil. In fact, my dad used to talk about my first mentor, like he was like some bad guy. And lo and behold, he's the guy that actually changed my life. So one of the things I want to lead off with is I want to understand from your perspective why wealth isn't evil, because I feel like a lot of people are scared to really lean into creating wealth, scared to lean into creating passive income, you know, because of they're thinking about judgment or whatever. I'm curious from your 2 cents, now that you've obviously become super successful and helped a lot of other people do the same thing. What are you seeing?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a good question. I haven't been asked that before. You know, wealth and money is just a tool. Tool can be used for evil, it can be used for good. It's really in whose hands, decides what it's used for. So money is power. It's the power to make things happen and to move things and buy things and all that kind of stuff. So I just see it as a tool. It's neither good nor evil. And really it all comes down to the individual. And also, one of the things I want to talk about is part of what I talk about in my book is that there needs to be a new definition of what wealth is. And so I have a different philosophy around wealth that also includes money, of course, but it's way beyond just money.
Yeah. No, that's so good. In fact, for you guys who don't know, this is the amazing book he's talking about right here. So yeah, we're gonna hit that a little bit hard because don't start a side hustle when everybody else and their brother on Instagram and social media is like, everybody go start a side hustle, go sell lemonade, go mow grass, go do this, go do that. And here comes along Brian, Mr. Passive Genius, like passivepreneur, let's make this happen kind of thing. No, I loved it. In fact, one of the things that I took away from the book was one definition of wealth that you had, and I'm gonna paraphrase it a little bit, was the abundance is the abundance of passive income.
Yeah.
Right. Talk to me about passive income versus active income. How are they different? How are they more important? Which one gives you more time, space, all that kind of stuff?
Well, that's one of the elements is passive income. I'll explain the other two in a minute. But the reason I wrote the book called Don't Start a Side Hustle is because nowadays the culture is all focused on hustle, grind, work harder, hustle, like outwork everybody, that kind of stuff. And that's not been my experience. It's not been my path to wealth. I mean, there have been times I've worked very hard, but I think that the problem with that thinking is that you equate money and wealth and income to your own efforts. And when you do that, everything is linear. Everything's tied to you. And if you can be making money that is not tied to your direct efforts, then there's no limit. There's no limit because it's not limited by your time. It's not limited by your efforts. It's not limited by your hustle. And so I think nowadays, entrepreneurs are working more hours than they ever have before. 9-to-5ers are working themselves to death. And now we're supposed to go do a side hustle on the side. I mean, this is crazy. So the difference between a side hustle and passive income is that there is no hustle in a passive income. It, by definition, for it to be passive means that if you stop working on it, it still continues to produce income. You may have to set it up, you may have to buy the asset or something, but once it's set up, it is passive or almost entirely passive. So that's one of the things that I teach in this book, and one of the things I'm passionate about because I've done it for myself, and I've met so many other passivepreneurs now, even though that's not what they call themselves. And I want to bring this to the world and share that there's a different way, as outrageous as it sounds, to create passive income.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the passivepreneur, right? Yeah. What is the identity of a passivepreneur? How do you see that passivepreneur shaping up? What type of attributes do they exhibit?
Well, if they're anything like me, I have this story of, there's been times throughout my life that I've worked jobs, especially when I was younger. I've been either fired from or quit almost every job I've ever had. So I've always said that I'm unemployable, whether for good or for bad. So I was always a natural born entrepreneur. But I think that being an entrepreneurs oftentimes are they're elevated to a status somehow above 9-to-5 people, W-2 people. And they also sometimes can look down on people that have jobs or employed by other people. But the ironic thing is that the average entrepreneur does not make more money, very little more money than a 9-to-5er. So the average entrepreneur right now, as of 2021, makes $74,000 a year. Wow. So the average entrepreneur is not getting rich. And trust me, if you divided the number of hours they work into their salary and what they make in a year, they're working for a lot less than the guy who goes to 40 to 50 hours a week at his job. So I think we should think about that. Maybe there's another level on top of that, and that is passivepreneur. And one of the people that talk about this early on many years ago, is, of course, is Robert Kiyosaki with Rich Dad Poor Dad. And he talks about the difference between the rich and the middle class and the poor is that the rich buy assets and the poor and middle class buy liabilities, and they don't buy assets. But I would argue that there's several steps beyond that, because you don't have to buy assets to become wealthy. You can actually create assets from nothing. And you can also leverage other people's assets ethically in order to create your own cash flow. So I talk about that in the book, that you can own, create, or control assets in order to become a passivepreneur.
I'm so glad you're actually bringing this to the marketplace. I actually think it's been overdue for a while. It's been interesting getting to know each other and becoming friends along the way and stuff like that. Not only do you find another brother, right, who's also trying to make a difference in the world through positive impact, but you've actually challenged me and you don't even know it. So I'm gonna tell you right now how you challenge me.
Tell me.
Okay. All right. So you know that I own multiple businesses.
Yeah.
And you know that most of those businesses are pretty successful. And
yes.
What you don't know is I work on average still to this day 70 to 80 hours a week.
Okay.
Now,
so I'm touching the sore spot here.
Yeah, you're touching a sore spot. Meanwhile, I chit chat. Hey, Brian, let's have a meeting at 4:30. Sorry, dude, I'm off at 4. Like, no, but we gotta plan this. He's like, it's a commitment I made to myself and my family. I'm off at 4.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm so jealous.
Not available on the weekends. My team don't touch me on the weekends. I'm not even available.
Yeah. Well, the crazy part is that I bet it's freeing for them too.
It is freeing for them because they're used to working around the clock, and for other companies before they came onto my company. But it's what I do now is by choice. Everything I do is 100% choice, and that's really that. If I can go back to my definition of wealth, wealth is 3 things. Okay, my definition is it's a combination of passive income, discretionary time, and free choice. Those are the 3 things that make up. So in other words, if I broke it down for you, passive income is defined as cash flow that requires nearly no effort of your own to create or maintain. Discretionary time is the number of hours you have available each day to spend as you see fit, not for obligations, but you can do whatever you choose. How many hours per day do you have to do that? And then free choice is the amount of agency that you have to do whatever you want to do and be whatever you want to have and all that kind of stuff. So it's choice, income, and time. Yeah. And unfortunately, most of us are time bankrupt. Yeah. So we may have a lot of money, we may have a high income, but we have no cushion, we have no spread, we have no availability in our schedule to just do things like play. I mean, when was the last time you played? I had this conversation with an entrepreneur recently, a friend of mine who's makes hundreds of millions of dollars a year, and I was like, when was the last time you just had fun? He's like, well, I'm always going to this and going to that. And I'm like, no, you're not business networking events. When's the last time you just played, had fun, did nothing that had to do with business? He's like, I don't even know the last time I did.
I'm hanging out with him. You might even be talking about me by accident.
You know what I'm saying? No, I'm not talking about you. But so that's kind of the idea, is that, like, if you take somebody that is working 80 hours, 90 hours a week, and they just have so much stress and maybe all these kind of strains on their life, but they're making bank. Yeah. Is that guy as more wealthy than the guy who has a very nice income, very nice lifestyle, and does almost nothing to maintain it? Yeah. Well, that's my argument. Now, some people, they love the hustle. They're addicted to the hustle. And I get it. Some people are just like, Elon Musk doesn't stop. He's never going to stop. He's not about the billions. He could stop.
I think it's because it's because he's not hustling to make money. He's hustling to make a dream come true. Like, it's a dream.
He's got a vision. Yeah. A vision drives him. But for a lot of people, I call this the Powerball question. I talk about this in the book. The Powerball question is, if tomorrow you woke up and won the Powerball lottery, would you go into work? And for most people, the answer is, well, heck no, I wouldn't go into work. Well, then that's an indication that you're spending your time, you're spending your life doing something that's not worthwhile to you.
That is so good.
And so if you're making your money at your job or your business, you're running a business, what if that could be completely eliminated and it could come from another source, what gives you all your time back? So now you can go do the passions that you want to pursue and do the things that you want to do with your life. And I think people don't realize that's possible. So they just stay in the grind that they're in, whether it's a job or an entrepreneur or whatever. And they never, because as an entrepreneur, the dream that was sold to me is be an entrepreneur. You can do whatever you want. You're your own boss. But that's not what all the entrepreneurs I know work their butts off and all the time, and they have no free time. So the dream is not there for most people. But to be truly wealthy, the dream is real. And to be truly wealthy means you have a lot of time and money. And I'm not talking about like, living the van life and you have no money, you have all the time in the world because you're a bum. I'm not talking about that. I've actually played that game myself for a little while. It was actually pretty fun. But I'm talking about having the money to live the incredible lifestyle that you want and have the time to spend with the people you love, the causes that you care about, to do things that might not be super profitable, like writing a book. It's been a dream of mine. It was a dream for most of my life to be an author. And so here I am, and I got to, write this book because I had the time to do it. So,
Yeah.
that's kind of some of the things I'm talking about.
Well, I know for a fact this book's going to touch a lot of people. Because I do think, I mean, especially in today's economy, I think everybody dreams of having financial freedom.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that most people count the cost of becoming financially free, or becoming financially free in the normal or historical or traditional methodology or modality. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Go start a business, work your butt off, build it as you go, deal with team member issues, deal with this, deal with that, all that kind of stuff. I don't know. Most of our audience probably knows who you are, right? You've been in the entrepreneurship circle for a while.
I won't assume so, but maybe.
Yeah. Well, all right. So for those that by some chance don't, one of the things I want to bring up is the fact that you are not teaching something based on theory. You're teaching something based on something you've been doing for almost a decade now.
Yeah.
So walk us back to the beginning of how you. Yeah. Well, walk us back to the beginning and tell us how you discovered that.
Okay, so let's go back to the beginning, because like early on in high school, I got involved in network marketing companies. Never made a dime, but I was all like, I had a lot of.
You read a lot of books.
I got a lot. Yeah, I read a lot of books. I got a lot of personal development. I got good at talking to people because you have to. But it was a lot of personal development. But I didn't make any money doing it. But I loved what they sold me, which is like, one day you can build this whole thing, you have all this passive income and stuff. It didn't work for me there, but then I got in real estate investing, and it worked amazing. And I started buying properties, renting them out, had cash flow. And within a year and a half, I was essentially retired. I was a millionaire in my 20s, and I just stopped everything that I was doing, didn't have a job anymore, started traveling the world. Everybody's like, how were you doing all that? This is amazing. This is so cool. Now I didn't have a big income. I had enough income to cover my lifestyle, but I didn't have a huge income. But that was really awesome because I experienced that total unbelievable freedom that everybody dreams of. It was like at a very young age. Then when the '08 crash happened, real estate, I lost everything. I had to go back to like, crap, now I'm back to paycheck to paycheck. I had to go get a job. And that really hurts when you've experienced and tasted the freedom or whatever. So I went back to having to get a job. And then because of all that turmoil, a lot of people went through the same turmoil. My credit was ruined. I owed $1.3 million to the IRS, which I couldn't pay.
Wow.
I had foreclosures on my credit. I was essentially like outside the financial system. I mean, it was a horrible, horrible time for me. And I had to figure out how I could get back to living that passivepreneur lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And so it all came with just a really simple idea, which at the time it was relatively new idea, not a big idea, which was Airbnb. And I took my spare room in the apartment that I was renting. I just listed it on the site, and immediately within a month or two, I made enough money to pay for all of my living expenses, including my rent and all utilities.
Wow.
I was like, whoa, I just apartment hacked. That was pretty cool. I'm making a lot more money on this little room than I did on my 1-bedroom units when I used to be a real estate investor. So I started thinking of a way to duplicate that process. So I duplicated it over and over and over again. And then I found a way to fully automate it with virtual assistants and like not do any of the work. And then boom, I was now had a bigger cash flow than I did as a real estate owner. Didn't own anything. I was now controlling properties, assets that weren't mine. So I was a controller. And again, I quit the job, walked away from the job. It was a 6-figure job. So I was making good money at the time. And then I, again, hit the road, traveled, lived the jet set life, looked like, all those Instagram people, whatever. And people again were like, how are you doing all this? Like, you must be really like independently wealthy or something. And I was like, no, I just have enough cash flow to do what I want to do. And so then I got to experience that. I started teaching people how to do that. And then that led into me creating an online course, which I created one time. That course has gone on to sell $16 million since that time. It still makes money to this day. And it teaches people how to do the same thing with Airbnb. And then I launched all kinds of online products and digital. So it created things. So I went from owner to controller to creator. And now I've gone back to owner again because I've reinvested in real estate and bought real estate and all that kind of stuff. So, and bought businesses and everything. So that's the idea. There's many ways to do it, and you want to kind of stack them. But the idea is that I have total 100% choice, and I get to do whatever I want, and also just have the time that I want in my life to enjoy the money that I have. And that's what I want for everybody.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you a personal question on top of this, if it's cool.
Sure.
It's something that I enjoy when I was going through some of the pages and reading. And there's this quick notes says, Dad, this one's for you. Dad, this one for you. So talk to me a little bit about how your father's influence has played a role in your life of teaching you
You're
maybe the
probably talking
lifestyle
about the forward and the front of
the
the book.
very forward. Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's right there. It says to Dad,
Yep.
I'm no Tolkien, but this is
Yep.
for you. So he was an avid Lord of the Rings fan, obsessed. He passed away last year,
Mm.
and the story opens with so the book opens with the story of my father, and on right before he died, he said that he never got to do the things he wanted to do in life. That was his biggest regret, and I never knew that about my dad because if you'd asked me, I would be like, my dad, did everything he wanted to do, and he did not do the things he
Yeah.
wanted to do with his life. And he regrets that immensely. And that's what they say, people on their deathbed, when they question what is your biggest regret? It's almost never, I regret that I did that stupid thing. It's, I regret that I didn't do the thing I wanted to do. International travel might not be your thing, but for me, I wanted to see the world. And I was like, if I died without having seen the world, that would have been a huge loss. And for other people, it's something else. But like getting to the end of your life and thinking, gosh, I didn't do the thing I really, really, really wanted to do. And that's a huge regret. And everybody's life, I mean, it's going to be here faster than anybody can imagine.
Yeah.
Our life it's just a blink. So that he was the inspiration for the book. And also just growing up very, very poor, with my parents not having much money and stuff, kind of set me up also to want to become wealthy, I think. So it's all outlined there as I talk about it.
I love it. Well, and I think it plays on the next point, which is which is one of the reasons I wanted to kind of bring it up. Most of us, all right, the vast majority of the population is going to settle just in general. They're going to settle for a career they're not meant for, possibly a relationship they're not meant to be in, for an identity that is not their created value or their identity and stuff like that. One of my biggest takeaways from this amazing book is the simple fact that it's designed to awaken you from within. It's designed to give you back your dream, designed to give you back your hope, your inspiration, but more importantly, a practical methodology on how to get there. Talk to me a little bit about why you think people settle rather than leaning into something that can ultimately transform their life from the inside out.
I mean, limiting beliefs are what hold everybody back. I mean, I can't pretend I don't have them. I mean, I'm always bumping up against them, but being self-aware enough to know what you believe is holding you back. So I one of the things I've always preached is what I call radical responsibility. I mean, you've heard this from all the great teachers about taking responsibility for yourself, but most people just simply won't. So there's this whole idea that like a baby has no responsibility and no ability to take any responsibility. Therefore, that's why they're a baby. An adolescent or a child can take responsibility, but chooses not to because they want to assert their independence, right? But an adult, if you're going to be an adult and you're going to be mature, you have to take 100% responsibility for where you are in your life, even if the circumstances that got you there were not because of you. Because ultimately, the only thing that will determine a change in your destiny is you making new choices. So, because we cannot control the things that happen to us, we can't control our environment. We can control how we respond to our environment, the books we read, the people we listen to, the wisdom that we heed, developing ourselves. Those things we can control. So I think limiting beliefs is belief systems are the only thing that keep people from what they want. It's always so being more aware of like, what are my beliefs? How can I change my beliefs? Studying it, it's a skill. You can literally change the way your mind works and start believing that you deserve more and that you can achieve more and you can do anything if you really believe it's really, you will see it when you believe it. And people always think, well, I got to be inspired first, or I got to find the right opportunity first. I got to do whatever. But it really is like you just believing it when you don't. I mean, that's what faith is. Faith is the evidence of things not seen. So you have to have faith without seeing it. And then miraculously it starts to happen. And you're like, whoa, that didn't exist before until I first saw it in my mind's eye.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I'm so glad you mentioned that too, because I actually think there's, obviously there's a few forms of belief. There's the limiting belief, the empowering belief, the bridge belief, and all that kind of stuff, which is great. But on the other side of belief, there's this concept of once you do become financially successful, okay, so you put in the work, hopefully you did it wisely. Hopefully you followed more of your rules, less of mine. I did it the hard way. But you go through that process, you begin to develop wealth, you begin to develop some credibility and even notability in certain marketplaces. And then all of a sudden there's a shift that I think that people evolve through. And it goes back to beliefs in that one of the things I love that you mentioned in the book is not to let your net worth become your self-worth. I thought that was really, really, really profound. As someone who used to put a lot of identity in my overall
especially
net worth.
for men, especially for men.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
talk to me a little bit about that, because I feel like that's such a profound mic drop moment that needs to seep in everybody's heart.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So, men always want to keep score. I'm not saying that women, it's not important. Some women it is. I don't want to make blanket statements here, but men want to keep score. The easiest way, most objective way to keep score is with money. So we're always looking at net worth, and we're thinking about where we should be, where we're not, and it's a trap. It's the, you can fall into the trap of more. And the trap of more is the guy who says, the billionaire who says, how much more money do you need? He's like, a billion, just another billion, like
Yeah.
it's always like, it's like,
Yeah.
I don't have enough. I got, so it's
Yeah.
like, a mentor of mine once said that if you could go back and talk to the you from 5 years ago, he or she would be astounded. Like,
Yeah.
because your dreams back then, you far exceeded them.
Oh
So it's
man.
like,
Yeah.
so you think about your
Sure.
dreams 5 years from now, and you're going to wildly exceed them. And then when you get there 5 years from now, it still won't be enough. So
Yeah.
it's like, so you have to be very careful of falling in that trap of achieving to be happy versus happily achieving. So you're unattached to where you're
Yeah.
going. You can be committed to what you're doing, but you're unattached to money. You're unattached to all that kind of stuff. And I think the only reason that I have kind of that unattachment to a degree is because of going through that whole experience of losing it all. So to be
Yeah.
a
Sure.
young millionaire, feel like you're the man and you're untouchable, and everything
You're
you do,
invincible.
you
Yeah.
touch turns to gold because you happen to be in a real estate market that's going up to the moon, and then you lose it all. You're like, who am I? And then you realize that's really sad that I just put my whole worth in my money, or what
Yeah.
I have or whatever. But ultimately, as my dad said, who was the wisest guy I've ever known, he said, there is no prize for being the richest man in the cemetery. So, you're not going to take any of it with
Ooh.
you. You just, one way or
Yeah.
another, that must be someone else. So,
Yeah.
so you got to think about like that. This is
Yeah.
very, very temporary. Everything you have is going to be very temporary. So that's a whole nother discussion. But this life is brief, and what you're going to have is going to be very temporary. And the most important thing, this is the most empowering thing, Stephen, is somebody told me one time, don't do it for other people because nobody cares.
Yeah.
Don't try to do things for other people because you know what? Oh, really, nobody cares about anybody themselves. So you're doing it for nobody.
Yeah.
So make sure you do the things for yourself and not for other people, because your way to being amazing and everybody loves you, but it's a trap too.
Yeah. Well, I find that most people that get lost in that are obviously like really lost in people pleasing. I was guilty of that.
Mm-hmm.
I used to just give and give and give and give and give. And all I got was from other people was, can I have more? Can I have more? Can I have more? And when I finally started saying no, they're like, what, you don't love me now? I'm like, this is not Scoggins International is not a bank. Like, it's a media company, right?
Yeah.
And you start walking through that kind of stuff. I don't know. It's been, I just thought that statement was really profound. And I think it gives a good contrast in between limiting beliefs and then not getting your identity lost in the very thing that you're.
It also depends on your philosophy. I mean, I have a Christian worldview, and Jesus said a man's worth does not consist in the abundance of his possessions. If the richest people on earth were the most honorable, valuable human beings, I mean, we all know that's not true. So it has nothing to do with that. But I do believe that everybody needs money. Everybody needs money to pay their bills. Everybody needs money to live their life. And some people want to also get wealthy, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think that that tying your identity up in it is a very dangerous place to be, because it is not something that is it's not something trustworthy. Money can, riches can come and riches can go. A lot of entrepreneurs have known. A lot of the best entrepreneurs and best business leaders have gone broke before they've broken through.
Yeah, most of them, including I know you have.
Yeah, I have, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I know Grant has. I mean, there's been a lot of people that have gone through very difficult circumstances.
It's the hero's journey. It's just the hero's journey.
Well, that's the awareness, right? That gives you awareness to appreciate that in which you've been called a steward.
Yeah.
Right. And I just think that's so valuable. I want to talk a little bit about the mindset of a passivepreneur, because we've kind of talked about a little bit of the limiting belief cycle. We've talked a little bit about the net worth, not losing your identity. What is a healthy mindset for a passivepreneur who's trying to build something amazing in the passive income stream area?
Well, for some reason, I just thought of one of the goats in real estate. One of my friends who's been around for a long time is a guy named Ron LeGrand. Mm-hmm. And one of his quotes he's known for is he always says this: "The less I do, the more I make. Yeah. The less I do, the more I make." So that is definitely a mantra for being a passivepreneur. And some people would hear that and think, well, gosh, what are you saying? Be lazy, or you get something for nothing, or it's like get rich quick or whatever. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that in the marketplace, you're paid for value. The value you bring. The more people you bring value to, the more money you make. So if you bring value to thousands of people, you could potentially make millions. If you bring value to millions of people, you can make billions. You know, that's the idea. But the value doesn't have to be tied directly to your time. It doesn't directly tied to you. So like if I bring value to millions of people, but it doesn't involve me directly, it involves my company and my team and other things that I don't have any time involvement in, then the marketplace is still going to reward me immensely. And I'm still not tied into that. So value is the only thing that matters, but doesn't have to be value directly from you. It could be value from something you built, something you purchased, something you've leveraged that someone else owns. And that's the whole idea of being a passivepreneur, is just remove yourself from the source of money. Put your source of money over here and yourself on the other side as far as you can be. And then not let those two intermingle unless you're doing what you love. And I mean, somebody says, well, what about the teacher who loves to teach and she's called to teach? She wants to be a teacher and she's happy with her income. The book's not for you. That's not who I'm talking to.
Might be for your husband or your wife.
Might not be for you. I mean, some people just absolutely love what they do, but I would say it's the vast minority of Americans that love what they do every day and feel like they have enough money to do what they want to do. So that's just a rare, small subset. Most people are just grinding it every day and they're doing the same thing day in, day out, you know, getting a paycheck or whatever. And they want a way out. They want to find a better way. And so this is what I'm saying, that there are better ways.
Yeah. Well, let's dig into that a little bit, because I agree with you. Right.
Yeah.
You're somebody I admire. I admire not just as a business, not just as an entrepreneur,
Thank you.
But as a person, right? You're genuine. You care. You actually, you know, we both know one of your amazing team members, Asia, who I've gotten to know obviously for some other things we've been working on back and forth. And the fact that you saw talent when you recognized it, right? He's like, I see talent. I don't know where it fits, but I see talent.
I'm hiring her, but I have no idea what she's going to do for me.
and now she's rocking your world in a positive direction, which is amazing. But you know, one of those things that I wanted to kind of mention is that I want to see entrepreneurs, whether that have a genuine interest in finding a way to give back and serve humanity, right? And it's not through. My son just dealt with this. So my son's car just crapped out, literally the weekend before last. And of course, we're like you, right? We follow the Ramsey principles, stay out of debt, da 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 da.
Yeah, smart.
And you know, I was messing with him because I was like, look, had you not spent the money, you know, from 3 months ago to do X, Y, and Z, you would have the money you need right now to do X, Y, and Z. And he's like, right. But when we did that, one of the things that I saw was gratitude and integrity come out of my son. Because he knew where he was at. He accepted where he was at, but he was willing to make a change to make sure it never happened again.
Responsibility, taking radical responsibility.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking.
Yeah. And as you're watching this kind of all unfold, you realize that I really want my son to understand that you don't have to trade time for money. Like you might do it for a season to get enough going to get the momentum. But if you're focused on trading time for money, you're never going to have enough time or money.
Yeah, it's true. Well, it's also linear. So, you know, one of the things about linear versus exponential is any kind of linear growth is predictable and it's visible and it can be seen. So in other words, you work a little bit, you get paid a little bit. You work a little bit more, you get a little paid more. You get a promotion, you can make more. You move up the ladder, you get paid more. Exponential is totally the opposite. It's like you could work for months on a project that makes nothing. Like, for example, when I launched my first course, it took 6 months of testing to basically have it flop, another 6 months of retesting and figuring it out, not getting paid for a year, because I had a mentor again that said, Brian, would you be willing to work for a year, 2, 3 years for free to make millions? It's like, maybe. So that's what I did. I worked.
Can you guarantee my millions?
Yeah. So I already had one passive income source running, which is my Airbnb. I was living off my Airbnb. So I had all the time in the world. So I took my time and I put it into the next asset, which was going to be my online course. Didn't make any money for a year, not any money for a year. But I did not stop. I was just like relentless about it. And then finally, when the piece fell into place, the very first time I did a webinar, I figured out how to do a webinar. Within 42 days of doing that first webinar, I made $1 million.
Wow.
So it's like 0 to 1 million. And then it just went hockey stick. Yeah. And so that's the power of exponential wealth. And then since that time, I mean, the webinar still produces sales. It still makes me money and I haven't touched it. So that's the idea of an exponential source of income is where you want to play. It's the game of the rich. The rich play in the exponential, which is why the rich get richer. They don't get richer because because it's something unusual they're doing. They're just playing in an exponential arena. So their
Yeah.
money can grow exponentially and their businesses can grow exponentially. Whereas everybody else is playing on this level field of linear income. So get away from linear income as fast as you can, or at least find a source that can replace your linear income so you don't have to do that anymore. And that's for anybody who wouldn't get up tomorrow if they won the Powerball.
Yeah, I love. By the way, I love the Powerball thing. I absolutely love that. By the way,
because I think
that is a very telltale thing to like figure out. Do I actually love what I'm doing?
Yeah, no, it's a very, because people give you all these answers. Well, I'm important at my job and I find fulfillment and I'm like to do this and but if you wouldn't get if they stop paying you tomorrow, would you go? That's another good question. Would they stop paying you tomorrow? Would you still go in? No, of course not. Yeah, because you do it for money. Let's be honest. You're doing it for money, unless it's specifically a calling that you feel like you're called to in your life. And a lot of things that people want to do with their lives don't pay anything. So there's this whole concept out there that you find your passion and then you do it so well that people recognize you and pay you lots of money for it, which is total BS, because I can enjoy playing golf, but the chances of me going pro are slim to none, right? I could want to be an actor, and as handsome as I may think I am, I probably don't have the skills to actually become a movie star. So it's like such a small percentage of people that will actually break out success. But that doesn't mean that I couldn't be an actor or play golf all the time because I enjoy it. So for example, one of my students who I taught how to do Airbnbs, he right out of college, did not want to get a job, wanted to do this whole thing. He got like 20 properties, 30 properties, automated them, spends zero time on his business, and he plays golf every day. So he's now working to become a golf pro. He doesn't make any money at golf, but he's like, that's his thing. That's how he wanted to spend his life.
3 years from now might be hockey stick.
He might be. So he plays golf. Yeah, maybe mastering it. So he plays golf because that's his life's passion. And so you don't have to make your passions pay. You can just do your passions. Who cares what they pay? Because you have a source. That's the idea behind this, is that life doesn't have to be like, the other thing is when you take a passion and you try to make it pay, you end up hating the passion. You're like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore because I'm not making money at it. When you didn't start it to do money, you did it because you love it. Yeah. Like, I've always been in theater and I've loved that. I did it because of the love of it, not because I ever thought I would make money with it. Yeah. So that's a big myth going on right now, that you got to mix your passion with your money. It's not necessary.
No, that's so good. That's so good. I want to pivot a little bit, right? So
sure.
You and I know this now. I think you and I have shared it in different ways, and we currently use different modalities to kind of bring it to light. But this concept of cash flow, creating cash flow, positive cash flow, recycling cash flow, but regenerating cash flow. Like, talk to me a little bit about the passivepreneur. How important is cash flow? What are some keys to create it? Like, give us some tips.
Okay, so cash flow is the name of the game. Cash flow is everything. So the difference between cash flow and income, people always want to know what's the difference. Well, income I would define as something that is earned. There's earned income. Whereas cash flow I would not define as something that you earn. So if you go get a job, you work at it, you do anything where you're giving your time and you're getting paid back, that is earned income. That is not the kind of income we want to work towards. We want to work towards something that's more passive, which would be cash flow. So cash flow is something that is income that comes off of an investment. It comes off an asset. So I call it a passive income vehicle. That's my word for assets. So a passive income vehicle can be something that you buy. In fact, I got a list here, so I'm just going to give you some examples. You can become an owner of passive income vehicles. For example, traditional real estate. You can own commercial real estate funds, invest into intellectual property like patents, domains, trademarks, copyrights. You can buy automated businesses like parking lots, vending machines. Existing businesses with management in place, businesses would qualify if there's management in place. If you are the management, it's not a passive income vehicle. So owning these things, you become an owner. But then there's the creator side, which is super exciting because that's all possible because of the internet and the technology and everything, which is creating anything that could eventually become put on autopilot. So creating online courses, writing ebooks, creating an app or Alexa skill, starting a podcast that you could run ads on, all these kind of things, creating content, so these are even NFTs is a good example, although they're not as sexy as they used to be. So these are some of the ideas that you create an asset that can then spin off cash flow. That is becoming a creator. And then the final source of cash flow would be being a controller. So you could control properties you don't own, put them on short-term rental. You could do drop shipping or private labeling where you actually don't create any products. Like when you go to Amazon, you buy an Amazon product. Do you think Amazon made that? Of course not. They don't have an Amazon factory. they have somebody else in a factory cranking out these widgets, and they stamp the Amazon logo on it, and that's their product.
Yeah.
So that's called private labeling. You can you can use the sharing economy with all kinds of different things, like vehicles and that kind of stuff, where you could have somebody else renting these vehicles and you don't have any involvement in it. It's a totally automated business. So the idea here is that there's hundreds of different ways to do this. A lot of them I've never even tried myself, but you only need to find one. You really need to find one and get that passive income vehicle to the point where it will replace what you're doing every day plus 50%. So if you make 50 grand a year, you need to make 75,000 a year with your first passive income vehicle. Then you could probably comfortably walk away from that. But then you don't want to stop there, because things change. So you do not want to rely on one. You want to have multiple passive income vehicles.
But you want to focus on one to get the successful
only
first,
one. You only
and
want
then
to
do
do
another one successful, then do another one successful.
Exactly, because then you have redundant, and you have a better chance of one of them going to the moon. Because if you're doing 10 of them over the course of however many years, one of them is probably going to go exponential. So that's the idea, and that's very different than saying do a whole bunch of different side hustles. So the perfect example of a side hustle is Ubering. Okay, so when I was working my job, I wanted to make extra money. I Ubered on the side. That is a horrible, horrible thing to do, because the only way you make money with Uber is if your butt is in the seat and you're driving people around, or coughing on your neck. I mean, that's the only way that you make money. There's no way to just remove yourself and say, I'm not going to drive. And so it doesn't qualify. That's a hustle versus a passive income source. If I sell an ebook, which I sell, not this book, I have another ebook that I sell every single day. Sells every hour. We're selling several of those ebooks. Every time that happens, I make.
That's because your stuff works.
And I haven't touched it in years. So that's an example of not a hustle. So it's not that there's no effort involved. If you're going to just go buy an apartment complex or a house, there's very little effort involved in that. And it does spit off cash flow. But for some people, you don't have the money, you don't have the credit. You might need to create something from scratch. I mean, my course took a couple $1,000s to build, so
it's also a high cost asset for typically a moderate cash return in traditional real estate.
Yeah. And you have to either have money or borrow money. So, you got to have your money or someone else's money to get in some of those assets. But the idea that you could make millions of dollars, or maybe you don't even want to have that, you don't even need to have that much money, but the idea that you can make millions of dollars from nothing in the information economy. I mean, information is the new oil. I mean, everything's information now. So it's all possible now with the internet and technology, that there's so many more ways to create these kind of opportunities that are traditional assets.
Well, out of curiosity, all right. So we've talked about passive income.
Yeah.
We've talked about becoming a passivepreneur. We've talked about mindsets in being a passivepreneur, successful entrepreneur, both.
Yeah.
We've talked about great starting points, meaning that all because you may not be where you are and want to be now does not have any indication of where you could be if you just tried. I am curious, of all the books on the planet, why did you decide to write this now? Why did you decide to write this amazing book, Don't Start Your Side Hustle, today? Why was now the time versus 5 years from now, or even 3 years earlier?
I think because I still see people in the same trap, and it's becoming more pervasive, the trap of doing more and more and more and more, and hustling harder and working harder. And, we live in an information age where there's so much coming at us. There's so many opportunities. We have no lack of opportunity. We have more opportunities growing every single year, more information, more content, more trying to vie for our attention. It's overwhelming in the modern world. Everything is so overwhelming. And I think this is kind of the antidote in a way, which is that you can just give all that up, and just like life can be so much simpler if you think of a different way of your relationship with money. And I've seen it only because I talk to so many people. I have so many students, and I see them falling into that trap, because they might be the 9-to-5er who's like, I long to work for myself. I'm like, but working for yourself, is not really that great in some way, because you still got to work, But then they go and work for themselves, and then they're working even more. And then they're like, I'm not really.
And then you end up like me, you're just working all the time. And you're like,
you're working all the time.
I have this amazing business. Everybody recognizes you because you're a whatever entrepreneur. I'm like, they have no freaking idea how early I get up, how late I go to bed, how hard I'm working.
Well, imagine if you had a boss that told you how to do all that. You would quit so fast. If you had a boss above you, most entrepreneurs, if you had a boss above you telling you to do all the things that you're doing today, you'd be like, screw you, I'm out of here. So I see that trap for both sides. And then I see another type of person who's a little bit less known, kind of under the radar, these people that are passivepreneurs, and they just live a completely different life. And they just have time, they have space, they have peace, they have because they're just not in that. They don't play that game. They're just like, and yet some of them make a decent living. Some of them are very, very wealthy, but ultimately none of that matters. It doesn't matter if your net worth is very low or very high. If you have the cash flow, passive income that you want to live the life that you want to live.
Yeah.
See, most people are socking away money for some future date when they're going to live off the interest. Like, I got to get to $5 million, or I got to get $1 million in the bank, and I'm going to live off that interest when I'm, 88. And it's like, that's a really sad, long life.
Well, if it's 1 million and you're 88, it might actually last you. But if you're 60 and it's 1 million, it's not going to last.
That's true. So it's that idea that like one day I'm going to arrive. Well, why not now? I mean, why not 3 months from now? Why not go from zero to semi-retired in a few months? It's totally doable. I mean, I see it happen time and time and time again, especially if your goal is to only just do what you're doing at your job.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so doable.
I've been telling my youngest son he will turn 21 this year in December.
Yeah.
I said, just spend 2 years of committed focus, not doing shenanigans just because all your buddies are doing it, but go out and learn from people like Brian. Go out and learn from, I've put him in circles where he's around some of the most brilliant minds on the planet, you included. And like, I'm like, just do what they say for 24 months. Just do that. Don't do anything else but that. And you'll be set, and just trying to get that to sink in. Cause that's the one thing that I wish I had heard at 20 years old, rather than 22 years old, having to restart life, coming out of home. Like you don't have to go that far to really figure it out if you'll just listen to the people who are trying to teach you how to do it. And one of the things I've always loved about your work is your stuff works. Like it's simple. It's simple in packaging.
Yeah.
It's practical in principle. And it's actually firm in foundation. I mean, there's a lot of things step by step that make it super, super powerful. And I know that this Don't Start a Side Hustle was a super passion project just for that reason. And I love the fact that you're trying to help so many people, given, these things are like seeds, right? They go everywhere and you never know whose hands they go into. And, this is one of those things that when we get to heaven, we'll figure out, okay, how many lives did the book actually touch? Right. Kind of thing. But I don't know, dude. I loved it. I love having you on. Love spending time with you as always. I am curious. Go ahead. Let's tell the audience where to get the book, where to find you, and get to know more about you.
Absolutely. So if you go to brian.page/book, you can get the book there. And for anybody listening or watching right now, if you go there, you can immediately download a sneak peek of the audiobook and the first few chapters of the book PDF as well. So you get an instant download the minute you pre-order the book. You'll be pre-ordering on Amazon or one of the retailers that we have. And then the book doesn't come out till October 18th. So you're actually going to get what nobody on Amazon can get, which is to actually start listening to the book and kind of diving in ahead of time if you go there and pre-order. So go to brian.page/book. And of course, on the website there, you can learn more about me and the other things that I teach and that kind of stuff. But I want to get in your hands. I mean, I'm obsessed with books. These aren't just for decoration. I have my library is full of some of the best books out there. Yeah. And I everything that I've done in my life has come pretty much from a book. I mean, I've had a few mentors in person, but mentors just tell you the things that you already read in a book that you're not doing. So,
or things that they read in a book.
That they read in a book. So you got to read, you got to read, get obsessed. And if you're not a reader, start reading. This would be a good place to just start reading.
Yeah. Love it, dude. Man, love you to death, man. Thank you so much for coming on Unstoppable, man. I really appreciate you big time, brother.
Thanks for having me here. I appreciate you.
All right. Take care. See ya.
See ya.
I hope you liked that video. And if you did, make sure you check out this next video right here.
When I dove into it and understood the mind, the power of the subconscious, and the ability that we have to create our own reality in every single moment, that's when I took my power back. And that's when I understood that I could change what I had been experiencing, the things that Western medicine doctors and specialists could not figure out.